Welcome to the Astrotherapy podcast. I am your host, Ciela Winter, and I am thrilled to dive deep into the inner realms of provocative thought while discovering an array of astrological and psychological insights to accompany us on this quest of self-inquiry. Hi. Okay, do you hear that? That's my hawk friend, New York City. There's a pair of hawks that live in the neighborhood in the East Village, and they're so lovely. Okay, so about today, about this time, we are post eclipse, those of us who survived, and wow, the question for this week: what isn't changing? Okay, and not to be confused with a previous journal that I wrote called What is Changing, because as I observe from my point of view, I can't actually see anything in my life that isn't changing. So I don't know how it's going for you, but I'm looking forward to hearing about it. How many of you can relate to this? Here are some examples of how change is moving through me, okay? My mind is being stretched, uncomfortably so. I will say that this eclipse was happening, the total solar new moon eclipse in Aries happened in my first house of identity. And so, aspects of what I've known and who I've known myself to be have been eclipsed, and that can be very disorienting. So shout out to other Pisces rising. Maybe you're an Aries rising and you had this in your first house, but you will know what I'm talking about for sure. Okay, so the mind is being stretched. My heart is melting open in some really profound ways. How many of you have had an ice fortress around your heart from being perhaps painfully initiated into some relationships that were difficult, were arduous, were motivating to then ice over and protect oneself? Anyone else understand what I'm talking about here? So, heart is melting open, feels good, feels liberating, a little scary, very tender. My energy is being consolidated, working on that, working to gather myself through some different modalities. Again, as a Pisces rising, I can be very vast, very expansive. And so grounding those energies can be incredibly powerful, working on that. And then my body is shifting its gravitational center again through some of these practices, like literally reorienting myself. So what forms of change are showing up in your world? This past month alone, remember the eclipse portal I'm talking about, and I'm wondering, are you feeling hungover too? Because, wow, it's taken me a minute to come full circle from this, and we're exactly a week from that new moon now as I record this. So for me, I faced some of my deepest fears, and I've reclaimed parts of myself I didn't even know that I had lost. I've grieved over immense loss in a friendship, and have started to find my way into some new internal terrain, working towards new beginnings, new possibilities, hopefully there as well. And I've completed a mission of love and gave my grandfather a true gift of the heart. He told me, and I went to visit him, and that he had had one of the best days of his life, nearly 95 years of age. That means so much. So I feel really good about that. And it required me to actually spend some time with my father, with whom I've been estranged from for over 4 years. Feels like an eternity. And I was able to remain true to myself. Now, this wasn't any encounter for me. It was very archetypal, like a Luke, Darth Vader experience. And yeah, I feel, how do I feel? I feel a lot of things, but I feel not only that that was so significant, so deeply important, but I was able to neutralize a lot of energy that was there and had been building up over those years. So that feels really good. I have initiated a new life practice, I mentioned, and discipline of self study, which I'm really, really grateful for. And I've turned every part of my New York City studio apartment upside down and inside out to really upgrade the frequency of my home, of which I'm still in process, which means I'm surrounded by chaos. You can't see it on this video, or you can't see it if you're listening on Spotify or wherever you're listening to this podcast, but trust me, it's a mess. It's a metaphor. It's a metaphorical mess of my mind and the process I'm going through to clear out the clutter. Okay, change begins within, and then it shows up in our relationships and our immediate environment. And then in the world, and the matters of the world are not separate, regardless of famine or wars happening in foreign countries, and you can seemingly continue with your day and evening routines. A ripple effect impacts each of us. Okay, it is just a matter of time before one feels that wave of collision with unity at some point. The world is small, it's a very small world, and as caretakers of this once pristine planet, certain responsibilities have been left behind, and those consequences are real, and we will be experiencing those, and we already are. So, this week's astrology news on Saturday, the long awaited phenomenon of the Jupiter Uranus conjunction in Taurus will finally bless us with some eclectic turn of events that could bring some new forms of abundance into your life in unexpected ways. Now, I'm not just talking financially, if it's happening in your second house, quite possibly, but it could be an abundance of energy, of resource, of health, of love, of opportunity. You get my drift? Okay, but there is no way of actually predicting what will come because Uranus will do, this kind of cosmic, rebellious notion that Uranus is notorious for, as it brings forth the element of surprise. In conjunct Jupiter, we can only guess that whatever is highlighted in this part of your chart will be amplified and obvious. It is helpful to know where these transits occur in your birth chart. And for example, with the recent eclipses, as I was mentioning, that total solar eclipse in Aries conjoined Mercury retrograde and Chiron took place in my first house of identity. And I've been, although it's not easy, it's comforting, in quotes, to know that my current identity, chrysalis, has not been in vain. That I'm there on purpose, that there is rebirth. Rebirth is one side of the coin of death. So sometimes it feels like you're in between. I don't think I'm alone in this. All right, moving into some astrology of this decade. As you've probably noticed, the astrology of this decade is quite strong. As we head into 2025, themes are heating up with both Neptune and Saturn entering the fire sign of Aries. Neptune on March 30th and Saturn on May 24th. Again, this is 2025. We're just looking ahead. These planets ingress into Aries. And this is for an initial preview of the February 20th, 2026 exact conjunction of the two in Aries at 0 degrees. More on this later. Okay, but these two planetary bodies are not the most compatible. Saturn, Lord of Karma, time, discipline, rigor, structure, etc., conjoins Neptune, the great illusionist, the mystical mist, nebulous and vast, unknowing, known. You get the drift. The juxtaposition is an invitation to discern the truth from the false as we traverse from the last degrees of Pisces, which is the end of an era, and cross boldly over into the new and foreign terrain of beginning again with Aries. Both of these planets are starting to bubble in the water sign of Pisces right now, which is why I'm bringing this to our attention as they reach closer to the cusp of Aries. This is not just any ingress. The Pisces-Aries border is the end and the beginning, where the alpha meets the omega, where death becomes rebirth. This is the snake as it eats its tail in mythology, right? The beginning and the end. The beginning is the end is the beginning. Where is the end? What's the beginning? And thus, it's the beginning of spring and the end of a season. We are thick in the mud right now, and the fires of Aries are awaiting to cook the earth from our feet and transform the collective with a poignant exactitude. Okay, we're talking about this 0-degree conjunction between Pisces and Aries, which is a significant message from the universe and its gods. So stay tuned for this as we head into this 2025. Again, preview 2026 on February 20th. Saturn, Neptune coming together, 0 degrees Aries. There's no going back, and the future shall be forged by our actions rather than our dreams. And perhaps the recent total solar new moon eclipse in Aries and all the planetary bodies moving through this fire sign as of late has given you a taste of the momentum this warrior sign has in store for us. Ruled by Mars, and the themes of war and the opposing forces of peace and violence are the center stage, as each of us is being asked to work this out from within, and from there change our relationship with each other and our world. All my best to you, and please receive the peace of my heart that lives inside these words.